The clock on Officer Rodriguez's dashboard showed 2:47 p.m. when he turned onto Maple Street for his regular afternoon patrol. It was one of those peaceful Tuesday afternoons where the biggest worry was helping an elderly neighbor find their lost cat or checking on a suspicious package that turned out to be someone's forgotten Amazon delivery. The Willowbrook neighborhood was known for its quiet streets, lined with oak trees and well-maintained lawns. Kids would be getting out of school soon, and parents would start appearing on porches, waiting for their little ones to come home. Rodriguez had been patrolling this area for 3 years now, and he knew most of the residents by name. It was the kind of place where the most exciting thing that happened was Mrs. Patterson's weekly complaint about teenagers skateboarding too loudly past her house. As he drove slowly down the street, checking each house out of habit, Rodriguez noticed something unusual. A small figure appeared in his rearview mirror, running at full speed toward his patrol car. The officer immediately pulled over and turned around to get a better look. What he saw made his heart skip a beat. A young boy, probably no older than 7 or 8, was sprinting down the sidewalk with tears streaming down his face. The child's dark hair was messy, and his small backpack bounced wildly as he ran. But what caught Rodriguez's attention wasn't just the boy's obvious distress. It was the way he was running directly toward the police car, waving his arms frantically above his head. Rodriguez had seen scared children before, but there was something different about this situation. The boy wasn't running away from something behind him. He was running toward help, and that usually meant something serious was happening. The officer quickly parked his car and stepped out, his hand instinctively moving to his radio. The boy was still about 50 yards away, but Rodriguez could already hear his cries echoing through the quiet neighborhood. A few curious neighbors had started to appear on their porches, drawn by the commotion. "Help! Please help!" the boy shouted as he got closer. His voice was hoarse, as if he had been crying for a while. Rodriguez knelt down on one knee, making himself less intimidating for the frightened child. As the boy approached, Rodriguez got his first clear look at him. The child had Asian features and was wearing a white school uniform shirt with navy blue pants. His sneakers were untied and his face was red and puffy from crying. But what made Officer Rodriguez's blood turn cold was what he saw on the boy's shirt. Dark red stains covered the front of the white fabric. The stains looked fresh and wet, and they were scattered across the chest area in an alarming pattern. Some of the marks looked like small handprints, as if tiny fingers had been pressed against the shirt while covered in the red substance. Rodriguez felt his stomach drop. In his 3 years of police work, he had responded to domestic violence, calls, accidents, and other traumatic situations. The sight of what appeared to be blood on a child's clothing immediately triggered every alarm bell in his head. "Son, what's your name?" Rodriguez asked gently, trying to keep his voice calm despite the panic rising in his chest. He needed to assess the situation quickly while keeping the boy as calm as possible. "Tommy," the boy gasped between sobs. "My name is Tommy Chen, and I live right there." He pointed toward a 2-story house with blue shutters about a block away. "Something's wrong with my mom. She won't wake up, and there's red stuff everywhere." Rodriguez's training kicked in immediately. He activated his radio with one hand while keeping his eyes on Tommy. "Dispatch, this is Unit 47. I need backup and medical assistance at..." He paused to look at the house number. 316 Maple Street. Possible domestic situation with injuries. I have a child at the scene who appears to have blood on his clothing. The radio crackled back with confirmation that help was on the way. Rodriguez estimated it would take about 5 minutes for backup to arrive, and every second counted in situations like this. "Tommy, I need you to tell me what happened," Rodriguez said, pulling out a small notebook. "Can you do that for me? You're being very brave right now." The boy wiped his nose with the back of his hand, leaving another small red smear. Rodriguez noticed that Tommy's hands also had traces of the red substance on them. This was looking more serious by the minute. "We were in the kitchen," Tommy began, his voice shaking. "Mom was making breakfast because I stayed home sick today. She was being really nice and making my favorite pancakes. But then she started acting weird." Rodriguez nodded encouragingly. "Weird how, Tommy?" "She was talking really fast and then really slow, and she kept saying she felt dizzy. I asked if she was okay, but she just sat down on the floor by the stove. Tommy's eyes filled with fresh tears. Then she closed her eyes and wouldn't talk to me anymore. I tried to shake her, but she wouldn't wake up. The officer glanced toward the house Tommy had pointed to. The front door was still wide open, and he could see into what appeared to be a living room. Everything looked normal from the outside, but Rodriguez knew that didn't mean anything. Some of the worst situations he had encountered had happened behind the most ordinary-looking doors. Tommy, is anyone else in the house with your mom? Rodriguez asked. This was crucial information. If there was a violent situation ongoing, he needed to know what they might be walking into. No, just me and Mom. Dad's at work. He works at the car place downtown. Tommy looked back toward his house with fear in his eyes. Officer, you have to help her. I think she's really sick or hurt. Rodriguez could hear sirens in the distance now. Backup would be there soon, but he needed to make some quick decisions. The boy was clearly traumatized, and there was obviously an emergency situation in the house. But Rodriguez also had to consider Tommy's safety. Whatever had happened inside that house, he couldn't risk bringing the child back into a potentially dangerous situation. Tommy, I want you to stay right here with me, okay? Rodriguez said firmly. My friends are coming to help, and we're going to take care of your mom. But I need you to stay by the police car where it's safe. The boy nodded, but Rodriguez could see he was fighting the urge to run back toward his house. It took tremendous courage for a 7-year-old to leave his unconscious mother and seek help from a stranger, even a police officer. As Rodriguez waited for backup, he studied the red stains on Tommy's shirt more carefully. The substance definitely looked like blood, but something about it seemed slightly off. The color was perhaps a bit too bright, and it didn't seem to be coagulating the way blood usually did. But Rodriguez had learned not to second-guess his initial assessments in emergency situations. Better to treat it as the worst-case scenario and be wrong than to underestimate the danger. The sirens were getting closer now, and Rodriguez could see the flashing lights of an ambulance turning onto Maple Street. Whatever was waiting for them, inside that house, they would know soon enough. The backup units arrived within minutes, their sirens cutting through the afternoon quiet like knives. Officer Rodriguez watched as 2 patrol cars and an ambulance pulled up to the scene. The paramedics immediately began unloading their equipment while the other officers approached Rodriguez and Tommy for a quick briefing. What do we have here? Rodriguez? Asked Officer Thompson, a veteran with 15 years on the force. His eyes immediately went to the red stains on Tommy's shirt, and Rodriguez saw his expression become serious. 7-year-old boy found his mother unconscious in their kitchen, Rodriguez explained quickly, keeping his voice low so Tommy couldn't hear all the details. Kid's got what appears to be blood on his clothes and hands. Mother is unresponsive inside the residence. No other family members present. Thompson nodded and turned to the paramedics. We need to secure the scene first, then get you guys in. There. He looked back at Rodriguez. Any signs of forced entry or struggle? Nothing visible from the outside. Front door was left open when the boy ran out. Rodriguez glanced at Tommy, who was sitting on the hood of the patrol car watching the activity with wide, frightened eyes. The kid seems genuinely scared for his mother's safety. This doesn't feel like a domestic violence situation, but we can't rule anything out yet. While the officers discussed their approach, one of the paramedics, a kind-faced woman named Lisa, knelt down beside Tommy. She had been working emergency calls for 8 years and had a special way with children in crisis situations. Hi there, sweetheart, she said gently. I'm Lisa, and I'm here to help your mom. Can you tell me how old you are? I'm 7, Tommy said quietly, wiping his eyes with his sleeve. Is my mom going to be okay? She was making pancakes and then she just fell down. Lisa noticed the red stains on his shirt immediately. Her medical training told her to examine them more closely, but she also knew she needed to keep Tommy calm. Tommy, can you tell me about these red marks on your shirt? How did they get there? Tommy looked down at his shirt as if seeing the stains for the first time. Oh, that happened when I tried to wake up Mom. I got down on the floor next to her and tried to shake her shoulder. There was red stuff on the kitchen floor, and I guess I got it on me. Was your mom bleeding, honey? Lisa asked carefully. She was trying to assess the situation without traumatizing the child further. "I don't know," Tommy said, his voice getting smaller. "There was red stuff everywhere. On the floor, on the counter. Mom was lying next to it." He started to cry again. "I was so scared, I didn't know what to do." Lisa exchanged a look with Officer Rodriguez. The boy's description was concerning, but something about his manner suggested he was telling the truth. Children. Tommy's age usually couldn't fake this kind of genuine distress. "Tommy, you did exactly the right thing by getting help," Lisa assured him. "That was very brave of you." Meanwhile, Officers Thompson and Jackson had approached the front door of the Chen house. The door was indeed wide open, just as Rodriguez had reported. They could see into a nicely furnished living room with family photos on the walls and children's toys scattered around. "Mrs. Chen?" Thompson called out loudly. "This is the police. We're here to help you." No response came from inside the house. Officers entered carefully, following standard protocol for unknown situations. The living room was quiet and showed no signs of disturbance. Family pictures showed a happy Asian family, a woman, a man, and Tommy at various ages. Everything looked normal and peaceful. They moved toward the kitchen where Tommy had said he'd found his mother. As they rounded the corner, both officers stopped in their tracks. The kitchen looked like a crime scene. Red liquid was splattered across the white tile floor in several large puddles. There were red handprints on the cabinet doors and smears across the counter. In the middle of it all lay an unconscious woman in her early 30s, wearing a light blue robe and slippers. "Call for additional medical backup," Thompson whispered into his radio. "We've got an unconscious female. Lots of blood at the scene." "Officer." Jackson knelt down beside the woman, checking for a pulse while being careful not to disturb potential evidence. "She's alive," he reported. "Pulse is weak but steady. She's breathing, but she's completely unresponsive." Thompson surveyed the scene more carefully. Something was bothering him about what he was seeing, but he couldn't put his finger on it. The red substance was everywhere, but the woman didn't appear to have any visible wounds. Her robe was clean except for where she had apparently fallen into the puddle on the floor. "This doesn't make sense," Jackson said quietly. "Where's all this blood coming from? I don't see any injuries on her." Thompson was thinking the same thing. In his experience, scenes with this much blood usually involved serious trauma or violence. But the woman looked peaceful, almost like she had simply fainted and fallen to the floor. "Check the stove and counter area," Thompson instructed. Maybe she was cooking and got hurt somehow. Jackson examined the stovetop and surrounding area. There was a pan with what looked like pancake batter still in it, and several ingredients were scattered around the counter. A container had been knocked over, and its contents had spilled across the cooking area. "Thompson, come look at this," Jackson called softly. Thompson approached the counter and saw what his partner was looking at. A large glass jar had fallen and shattered, its contents spreading across the counter and dripping onto the floor. The label on the broken jar was partially visible: homemade strawberry syrup. "Is that?" Thompson started to ask. "I think we might have jumped to the wrong conclusion," Jackson replied, carefully touching a small amount of the red substance with his finger. He smelled it cautiously. "This smells like strawberries." At that moment, the paramedics entered the kitchen. Lisa immediately went to the unconscious woman while her partner began checking vital signs and preparing medical equipment. "What's her condition?" Lisa asked as she knelt beside the woman. "Unconscious but stable vitals," Jackson reported. "We initially thought there was trauma due to all the red liquid, but we think it might be spilled food coloring or syrup." Lisa began her medical assessment. She checked the woman's pupils with a small flashlight and took her blood pressure. Her pulse is weak and her breathing is shallow. These could be signs of a medical emergency rather than trauma. "Like what?" Thompson asked. "Could be diabetic shock, heart episode, seizure, lots of possibilities," Lisa explained as she worked. "Sometimes people collapse suddenly due to medical conditions. If she was cooking when it happened, that would explain the mess." Back outside, Tommy was getting more anxious watching all the emergency vehicles and personnel around his house. Officer Rodriguez stayed close to him, trying to provide reassurance. "Tommy, Do you know if your mom has any health problems? Rodriguez asked gently. Does she take any medicine or see doctors regularly? Tommy thought for a moment. She takes shots sometimes, he said, with a little needle. Dad gives them to her when she doesn't feel good. Rodriguez's eyebrows raised. Insulin shots. That could be the missing piece of the puzzle. Tommy, does your mom ever get really tired or dizzy before she takes those shots? Yeah, sometimes she gets really shaky and says she feels funny. That's when Dad helps her with the needle. Tommy looked toward his house. She was acting like that this morning, but Dad already left for work. Rodriguez immediately radioed this information to the officers inside. If Mrs. Chen was diabetic and had experienced a severe blood sugar episode, every minute counted. The mere red substance being strawberry syrup instead of blood would actually make perfect sense in this scenario. Officer Rodriguez's radio crackled with urgent updates from inside the house. He pressed the earpiece closer as Thompson's voice came through clearly. Rodriguez, we need you to ask the boy about his mother's medical history, specifically about diabetes or insulin. This scene is looking less like trauma and more like a medical emergency. Rodriguez knelt down beside Tommy, who was anxiously watching the paramedics carry equipment into his house. The boy's small hands were clenched into fists, and he kept shifting his weight from foot to foot. Tommy, this is really important, Rodriguez said gently. You mentioned your mom takes shots with a needle. Do you know what those shots are for? Dad says they help her feel better when her sugar gets too high or too low, Tommy replied, his voice shaky. He keeps the needles in a blue box in the refrigerator. Mom has to check her finger with a little machine every day. Rodriguez felt a surge of relief mixed with urgency. Diabetes explained everything: the sudden collapse, the confusion Tommy had described, and most importantly, why Mrs. Chen would be making strawberry syrup early in the morning. Many diabetic patients kept sweet foods on hand for low blood. Sugar emergencies? Tommy, did your mom eat anything this morning before she collapsed? No, that's why I was confused, Tommy said, wiping his nose. She always eats breakfast first, but today she went straight to making my pancakes. She said she wanted to make something special since I wasn't feeling good. This information painted a clear picture. Mrs. Chen had likely skipped her own breakfast to focus on caring for her sick son, causing her blood sugar to drop dangerously low. When she tried to make the strawberry syrup, the diabetes episode had caused her to collapse. Inside the house, paramedic Lisa was working quickly to stabilize Mrs. Chen. She had already checked the woman's blood glucose levels using a portable meter, and the reading confirmed their suspicions. Blood sugar is critically low, Lisa called to her partner Mike. We need to start glucose IV immediately. Mike prepared the intravenous equipment while Lisa continued monitoring Mrs. Chen's vital signs. The woman's breathing had become more labored, and her skin was pale and clammy, classic signs of severe hypoglycemia. How long do you think she's been unconscious? Mike asked as he inserted the IV line. Based on the boy's timeline, probably about 20 to 30 minutes, Lisa replied. That's getting into dangerous territory for brain function. Officer Thompson was documenting the scene with his camera, but his focus had shifted from potential crime scene evidence to medical emergency documentation. The broken jar of strawberry syrup told the real story. Mrs. Chen had been preparing a special breakfast for her son when the diabetic episode struck. Jackson, check the refrigerator. For diabetic supplies, Thompson instructed. The boy mentioned insulin and testing equipment. Jackson opened the refrigerator and immediately found what they were looking for. A blue medical kit sat on the top shelf, containing insulin pens, test strips, and glucose tablets. The organization of the supplies suggested this family was well prepared for managing diabetes, which made Mrs. Chen's current condition even more concerning. Looks like they're experienced with diabetes management, Jackson reported. All the supplies are here and properly stored. Thompson nodded and radioed the information to Rodriguez outside. Tell the boy we found his mom's medicine kit. Ask him if she used it this morning. Rodriguez relayed the question to Tommy, who shook his head vigorously. She didn't check her finger this morning. I asked her to because she was acting weird, but she said she would do it after breakfast. Tommy's eyes filled with fresh tears. I should have made her do it right away. Hey, listen to me, Rodriguez said firmly but kindly. This is not your fault, Tommy. You're 7 years old and you did everything exactly right. You got help when your mom needed it most. The sound of medical equipment being moved quickly drew their attention back to the house. Through the front door, they could see the paramedics preparing to transport Mrs. Chen to the hospital. Lisa emerged from the house first, her expression serious but hopeful. She approached Rodriguez and Tommy with purpose. "Tommy, your mom is going to be okay," Lisa said, sitting down so she was at eye level with the boy. "She has something called diabetes, which means her body has trouble controlling sugar levels. Sometimes when the sugar gets too low, people can faint like your mom did. Is that why she was acting strange this morning?" Tommy asked. "Exactly. When people with diabetes have low blood sugar, they might feel confused, shaky, or dizzy. Your mom probably felt sick but wanted to take care of you anyway." Lisa smiled reassuringly. "The good news is that we can fix low blood sugar pretty easily with medicine." Mike and his team wheeled Mrs. Chen out on a stretcher, an IV bag hanging above her. She was still unconscious, but her color looked better than when they had first found her. "Will she wake up?" Tommy asked, standing up to get a better look at his mother. "The medicine we gave her should help her wake up soon," Lisa explained. "But we need to take her to the hospital so the doctors can make sure she's completely better." Officer Thompson joined the group outside, having finished securing the house. He had found Mrs. Chen's purse and gathered the medical supplies they would need at the hospital. "Tommy, we're going to need to call your dad," Thompson said gently. "Do you know where he works?" "He works at Peterson's auto shop on 5th Street, Tommy replied. "His name is David Chen. He fixes cars." Rodriguez was already dialing the number for the auto shop. These situations were always difficult for family members, especially when they received unexpected calls about medical emergencies. While Rodriguez spoke with Tommy's father, Detective Williams arrived at the scene. She had been called in to ensure all protocols were followed, given the initial reports of a child with blood-stained clothing and an unconscious adult. Williams surveyed the scene quickly, speaking with Thompson and Jackson about their findings. The initial alarm about potential violence had been completely dispelled, but the medical emergency was still serious. "How's the boy handling everything?" Williams asked, watching Tommy talk with Lisa. "Better than most kids would," Thompson replied. "He's scared, but he's been incredibly brave. Probably saved his mother's life by getting help so quickly." Detective Williams approached Tommy with a gentle smile. "Hi, Tommy. I'm Detective Williams. I heard you were very brave today." Tommy looked up at her with tired eyes. "I was really scared. I thought my mom was hurt bad." "Being scared doesn't mean you weren't brave," Williams said. "Brave people feel scared too, but they do the right thing anyway. And you definitely did the right thing." The ambulance was ready to leave for the hospital. Lisa came over to Tommy one more time. "Tommy, your dad is meeting us at the hospital," she said. "Officer Rodriguez is going to drive you there so you can be with your mom and dad." "Can I ride in the ambulance?" Tommy asked hopefully. Lisa looked at Rodriguez, who nodded. "I think we can arrange that," she said. "But you have to promise to sit quietly and let us take care of your mom." Tommy nodded eagerly. After the morning's traumatic events, being close to his mother felt like the most important thing in the world. As they prepared to leave, Tommy suddenly looked down at his shirt again. The red stains that had caused so much alarm were now just reminders of his mother's favorite pancake topping. "Officer Rodriguez," Tommy said quietly, "will you tell my mom that I'm sorry I got her syrup all over everything?" Rodriguez felt his heart break a little. "Tommy, your mom isn't going to care about spilled syrup. She's going to be so proud of how you helped her today." The ambulance pulled away with sirens blaring, carrying Tommy and his mother toward the hospital. Rodriguez followed in his patrol car, thinking about how quickly a normal day could turn into a life-changing emergency, and how sometimes the smallest heroes made the biggest difference. The ride to the hospital felt like the longest 10 minutes of Tommy's life. He sat quietly in the ambulance, holding his mother's hand while Lisa monitored the medical equipment around them. The IV bag swayed gently as the ambulance turned corners, and the steady beeping of the heart monitor provided a reassuring rhythm. "Is the medicine working?" Tommy asked, watching his mother's face for any signs of change. Yes, sweetheart, it is, Lisa replied, checking the glucose monitor again. Her blood sugar levels are starting to come back up. That's exactly what we want to see. Tommy squeezed his mother's hand gently. Mom always tells me that everything happens for a reason, he said quietly. Maybe I stayed home sick today so I could help her. Lisa felt her eyes well up with tears. In 8 years of emergency medical work, she had seen many difficult situations, but the pure love and wisdom of this 7-year-old boy touched her heart deeply. At Mercy General Hospital, David Chen was pacing nervously in the emergency room, waiting area. He had dropped everything at the auto shop the moment Officer Rodriguez called. His work clothes were still stained with motor oil, and his hands shook slightly as he checked his phone for the 100th time. When the ambulance arrived, David rushed outside to meet them. The sight of his unconscious wife on the stretcher and his son with red stains all over his shirt nearly brought him to his knees. "Tommy," David called out, opening his arms wide. Tommy jumped down from the ambulance and ran straight into his father's embrace. "Dad, Mom collapsed in the kitchen. I was so scared, but the nice officer and the paramedics helped us." David held his son tightly while watching the medical team wheel his wife into the emergency room. "You did good, buddy. You did exactly what you were supposed to do." Dr. Patricia Hernandez, the emergency room physician on duty, met the team at the door. She had already been briefed about the diabetic emergency and was prepared to continue treatment immediately. "How long has she been unconscious?" Dr. Hernandez asked as they transferred Mrs. Chen to a hospital bed. "Approximately 45 minutes. Total," Lisa reported. "Blood glucose was critically low at 35 when we found her. We've administered 1 dose of IV glucose and her levels are responding well." Inside the treatment room, the medical team worked efficiently to stabilize Mrs. Chen. Her blood pressure was monitored continuously, additional blood tests were ordered, and Dr. Hernandez performed a thorough neurological examination to ensure no complications from the prolonged low blood sugar. Meanwhile, Officer Rodriguez sat with Tommy and David in the waiting room, finishing up his incident report. Detective Williams had asked him to gather some additional information about the family's medical history to complete the case documentation. "Mr. Chen, how long has your wife been diabetic?" Rodriguez asked gently. David rubbed his tired eyes. "About 3 years now. She was diagnosed right after Tommy turned 4. We've gotten pretty good at managing it, but she's been under a lot of stress lately." "What kind of stress?" Rodriguez inquired. "Work stuff, mostly. She lost her job, too, months ago when the company downsized. We've been worried about health insurance and medical costs." David looked toward the emergency room doors. "She's been trying to stretch her insulin supplies to make them last longer. I think that might have contributed to this." This revelation hit Rodriguez hard. He had seen this scenario too many times, families rationing medical supplies due to financial constraints, often leading to dangerous health complications. "Has she been skipping doses?" Rodriguez asked. "Not exactly skipping, but maybe not taking as much as she should," David admitted reluctantly. "We've been trying to make her supplies last until she finds new work with better insurance." Tommy looked up at his father with confusion. "Is that why Mom has been feeling sick more often?" David's heart broke seeing the worry in his son's eyes. "Yeah, buddy. Sometimes when grown-ups are worried about money, they make choices that aren't the best for their health." About 30 minutes later, Dr. Hernandez emerged from the treatment room with good news. Mrs. Chen was awake and responsive, though still weak from the ordeal. "She's going to be fine," Dr. Hernandez announced with a smile. "Her blood sugar levels have stabilized and all her neurological functions are normal. She was very lucky that Tommy acted so quickly." "Can we see her?" David asked, standing up. "Immediately. Of course. She's been asking for both of you." Tommy practically ran down the hallway to his mother's room. When he saw her sitting up in bed with a weak but genuine smile on her face, he burst into happy tears. "Mom, you're awake!" Tommy climbed carefully onto the bed and hugged her gently. "Oh, my brave boy," Mrs. Chen whispered, her voice still a bit shaky. "I heard you saved my life today." "I was so scared," Tommy said, burying his face in her shoulder. "I thought you were really hurt because of all the red stuff on my shirt." Mrs. Chen looked down at Tommy's stained shirt and started to laugh softly. My homemade strawberry syrup. I was trying to make your favorite pancakes because you weren't feeling well. The officers thought it was blood at first, David explained, sitting down beside the bed. It caused quite a stir in the neighborhood. Dr. Hernandez joined the conversation, pulling up a chair. Mrs. Chen, I need to talk to you about your diabetes management. The paramedics mentioned that you might have been rationing your insulin. Mrs. Chen looked embarrassed. We've been having some financial difficulties since I lost my job. I was trying to make my supplies last longer. I understand the financial pressure, Dr. Hernandez said compassionately. But rationing insulin is extremely dangerous. What happened today could have been fatal if Tommy hadn't gotten help so quickly. Officer Rodriguez knocked gently on the door and entered the room. I'm glad to see you're feeling better, Mrs. Chen. Your son is quite a hero. Officer Rodriguez helped me when I was scared, Tommy told his mother proudly. He called all the other helpers and stayed with me the whole time. Mrs. Chen reached out to shake Rodriguez's hand. Thank you so much for taking care of Tommy and for getting help so quickly. I can't imagine how frightening this must have been. For him, he handled it better than most adults would have, Rodriguez replied. You should be very proud of him. Dr. Hernandez cleared her throat. I've been thinking about your insurance situation. There are several programs available to help families afford diabetes supplies. Our social worker, Janet, specializes in connecting patients with these resources. Really? David asked hopefully. We've been so worried about the cost of everything. Absolutely. Many insulin manufacturers have patient assistance programs, and there are community health centers that offer sliding scale payment options. You don't have to choose between your family's financial security and proper medical care. A few minutes later, Janet Phillips, the hospital social worker, arrived with a folder full of information. She was a kind woman in her 50s who had helped hundreds of families navigate medical financial challenges. I've already made some calls, Janet said, sitting down with the family. There's a patient assistance program through your insulin manufacturer that could reduce your costs by up to 80%. I can help you apply today. Mrs. Chen started to cry with relief. We've been so worried about this, I never thought there might be help available. Many people don't know about these programs, Janet explained. That's why I'm here. We also have a diabetes support group that meets every other Wednesday. Other families share tips about managing both the medical and financial aspects of diabetes. Tommy listened to all this grown-up talk with interest, but what mattered most to him was that his mother was okay and that his family wouldn't have to worry so much anymore. Mom, Tommy said quietly, does this mean you'll take all your medicine like you're supposed to? Yes, baby. Mrs. Chen promised, kissing the top of his head. I'll take all my medicine exactly like the doctor says. I never want to scare you like that again. Dr. Hernandez smiled at the family. Mrs. Chen, I'd like to keep you for observation for a few more hours just to make sure everything stays stable, but you should be able to go home this evening. As the afternoon progressed, the initial terror of the morning gave way to relief and gratitude. Tommy had learned that being brave doesn't mean not being scared, and his parents had learned that asking for help isn't something to be ashamed of. 3 weeks after the incident, Officer Rodriguez was driving his regular patrol route through Willowbrook when he decided to stop by the Chen family's house. He had been thinking about Tommy and his mother often since that frightening Tuesday afternoon, and he wanted to check on how they were doing. As he pulled up to the familiar blue-shuttered house on Maple Street, Rodriguez smiled at what he saw. Tommy was in the front yard playing catch with his father. The boy looked healthy and happy, a completely different picture from the terrified child who had run crying toward his patrol car just weeks earlier. Officer Rodriguez, Tommy shouted when he spotted the police car. He dropped his baseball glove and ran toward the street, his face beaming with excitement. Hey there, hero, Rodriguez said, stepping out of his car. How's everything going? So much better, Tommy exclaimed. Mom is feeling great, and Dad doesn't have to worry about money for her medicine anymore. Want to come inside? Mom made cookies. Yesterday. David Chen appeared from around the corner of the house, wiping his hands on a work towel. He had been fixing a leaky faucet in the backyard, a weekend project he could finally tackle now that his stress levels had decreased significantly. Officer Rodriguez, what a nice surprise. David said, extending his hand warmly. Please, come in. Helen would love to see you. Inside the house, the kitchen where the emergency had occurred looked completely normal. Fresh flowers sat on the counter, and the smell of homemade cookies filled the air. Mrs. Chen appeared from the living room, looking healthy and energetic, a stark contrast to the unconscious woman they had found on this same kitchen floor. Officer Rodriguez, Mrs. Chen said, giving him a warm hug. I've been hoping you would stop by. I wanted to thank you properly for everything you did for our family. How are you feeling? Rodriguez asked, genuinely concerned. Like a completely new person, she replied, gesturing for everyone to sit at the kitchen table. The patient assistance program Janet helped us with has been a godsend. I can take all my medication exactly as prescribed without worrying about the cost. Tommy climbed onto the chair next to Rodriguez, still excited to see his friend again. Mom checks her blood sugar every day now, and she has special snacks in case she feels funny again. I know where everything is too, just in case. Mrs. Chen ruffled her son's hair affectionately. Tommy has become my little medical assistant. He reminds me to eat on time and asks if I've taken my insulin. He's more responsible than some adults I know. That's because I don't want you to fall down again, Tommy said seriously. It was really scary. Rodriguez felt a warmth in his chest, seeing how the family had grown stronger through their crisis. Tommy, you know what? The police department has been talking about your brave actions that day. We want to give you a special recognition award. Tommy's eyes went wide with surprise. Really? What kind of award? It's called a Citizen Hero Award, Rodriguez explained. We give it to people who help others in emergency situations. You'll get a certificate and a special badge, and there will be a small ceremony at the police station. David and Mrs. Chen exchanged PR-out looks. Their son had indeed been a hero that day, but seeing him receive official recognition would make it even more special. Can Mom and Dad come to the ceremony? Tommy asked. Of course, your whole family will be there. And I think the local newspaper might want to write a story about what happened too. Mrs. Chen served fresh chocolate chip cookies and milk while they continued talking. She had returned to baking and cooking with enthusiasm, no longer worried about managing her blood sugar properly. You know, something wonderful came out of all this, Mrs. Chen said, settling down with her own cup of coffee. The diabetes support group Janet told us about has become like a second family to us. How so? Rodriguez asked. We meet every other Wednesday at the community center, David explained. There are about 15 families dealing with similar situations. We share tips about managing diabetes, but more importantly, we support each other through the challenges. Tommy nodded enthusiastically. There are other kids there too. My friend Maya's dad has diabetes like Mom. We play games while the grown-ups talk about serious stuff. Mrs. Chen smiled at her son's description. The group has taught us so much, not just about medical management, but about advocating for ourselves and finding resources we never knew existed. And it's made me realize how many families struggle with the same problems we faced, David added. The financial stress of managing chronic illness is more common than we thought. Rodriguez learned that the Chen family had become advocates within their community. Mrs. Chen had started volunteering with the hospital's patient assistance program, helping other families navigate the complex world of medical financial aid. I know how overwhelming it can feel when you're facing medical bills you can't afford, Mrs. Chen explained. If my experience can help even one other family avoid rationing their medication, then something good came from our scary situation. The conversation was interrupted by a knock at the front door. David went to answer it and returned, with an elderly woman Rodriguez recognized from the neighborhood. This is Mrs. Patterson, David said. She lives 2 houses down. Mrs. Patterson, a woman in her 70s with kind eyes and gray hair, smiled warmly at the group. I hope I'm not interrupting, but I wanted to drop off some soup for the family. Mrs. Patterson has been incredible, Mrs. Chen said, accepting the container gratefully. After word got around the neighborhood about what happened, so many people reached out to help. It was the least we could do, Mrs. Patterson said. When I heard about little Tommy running for help and everything your family had been going through, it reminded me that we need to look out for each other better. Rodriguez was amazed to learn that the incident had sparked a neighborhood support network. Neighbors had organized meal trains, offered rides to medical appointments, and even started a small emergency fund to help local families facing medical financial crises. Tommy's bravery inspired all of us, Mrs. Patterson continued. This little boy showed us what it means to act when someone needs help, regardless of how scared you might be. After Mrs. Patterson left, the Chen family shared more details about how their lives had changed. Mrs. Chen had found a new job with better health insurance benefits. David had been promoted to assistant manager at the auto shop. Most importantly, their family had learned valuable lessons about asking for help and supporting others. You know what the best part is? Tommy said, finishing his second cookie. I'm not scared anymore when Mom feels sick. I know what to do, and I know there are lots of people who can help us. Mrs. Chen's eyes filled with happy tears. My brave boy taught all of us that it's okay to be scared as long as you still do the right thing. As Rodriguez prepared to leave, Tommy walked him to the door. Officer Rodriguez, can I ask you something? Of course, buddy. Do you think other kids could learn to be brave like I was, in case their families need help too? Rodriguez knelt, down to Tommy's level, struck once again by the wisdom of this remarkable child. I think that's a great idea, Tommy. Maybe you could help us teach other kids about emergency safety. Tommy's face lit up with excitement. Really? I could tell them about calling 911 and staying calm and stuff like that? Absolutely. Heroes like you make the best teachers. 6 months later, Officer Rodriguez found himself standing in the community center, watching Tommy present to a group of children about emergency preparedness. The 7-year-old boy spoke confidently about staying calm, getting help quickly, and trusting police officers and paramedics. Mrs. Chen sat in the audience, healthy and glowing, volunteering her time to help other diabetic families. David was there too, having taken time off from his new promotion to support his son's presentation. The red stains that had once caused such alarm were now just a memory, a reminder that sometimes the scariest moments can lead to the most beautiful outcomes. Tommy had learned that being brave doesn't mean you're not afraid. It means you help others even when you are afraid. The Chen family's story had become a symbol of hope in their community, proving that when people come together to support each other, even the most frightening situations can have happy endings.